Jesus is very specifically now focused on Peter. And it's funny because Peter at this point is probably still wrestling with a lot of condemnation. I want to tell you who Peter was 3 years prior to this. He was an ignorant fisherman. If he was a fisherman, it meant he had no education. It meant he didn't live very high on the hog. He wasn't paycheck to paycheck. He was night to night, the throwing of the net. Did we catch fish? Did we not catch fish? If we catch fish, we eat. If we don't catch fish, we don't eat. He was crude. He was rude. He was out of control. He was not the most optimistic man on the planet. He had trouble controlling many things in his nature. And he probably just plain physically stunk. That's who he was 3 years prior to the finishing of this story. It's funny because if we look at Peter's life just a few days prior to the end of this story, you would have to wonder if walking with Jesus 3 years made any impact in Peter's life at all. It was just a few days before that Peter proved he still was struggling to control his temper. He's there in the garden with Jesus, and the temple guards come to arrest Jesus and haul him off, and Peter loses control and he grabs a sword and he cuts an ear off of one of the guards. He's proven he has not really understood what Jesus was saying. It appears that traveling with Jesus, who was so meek and mild, never losing his temper, did it rub off on Peter at all? Did hanging out with Jesus make any impact on this guy? A few hours later, Peter finds himself being questioned. Aren't you one of his disciples? And after walking with this Jesus for 3 years, seeing signs and wonders that were beyond description, the guy actually is still such a coward. He says, No, I don't know him. I don't know what you're talking about. And yet, after walking with Jesus 3 years, with it not that apparent in the natural that much has rubbed off on Peter, Jesus is back calling Peter to shore, reminding Peter of the original lesson. I called you to be fishers of men. And I said, if you will follow me, I will teach you how to catch men. You've been following me for 3 years. And Peter didn't know that just a few days after this story, Peter, this man just hours removed from being a coward, losing his temper, still not really getting what Jesus was saying about the death and the resurrection. This man was just hours away from being officially set in by God Himself as the bishop of the first century church. I've often wondered about Peter, quite puzzled. When I look at guys like David and guys like Peter, I'll be honest with you, it makes me feel a little bit better about myself. I got bad days and I got frailties and I got failures, but I look at these guys and I think, man, these guys... Peter, 3 years after walking with Jesus, is called back up onto the beach by his master. Peter, what just happened out there? Lord, you told me to throw the nets. I threw the nets, and we brought in more fish than we can almost pull in. 153 large fish. Jesus, no record at least of Jesus commenting on the net to Peter, but God took time to comment on the net for you and I. Peter was supposed to get the visual of the object lesson. We're supposed to get it through the very story of God. The 3 years prior to meeting Jesus, Jesus promised them, if you will come to me and follow me, I will change your life. I will make you productive, and your life will be bigger than just day-to-day survival. And for 3 years, these guys followed him Now they find themselves, and it would appear they're not that much further down the road than they were 3 years ago. And yet Jesus, for some reason, would beg to differ with how that would appear. He says, Peter, you go back to the boat. You get the net. I want you to get the net and bring it here. And Peter does, and the Bible becomes very clear that though the net was so full, God made a point to say, but this time the net did not break.